time to tell a new story. And that is the story of the best champagne that you've ever tasted. I'm curious.
Well, I can actually talk about the two best champagnes I've ever tasted. Very, very quickly introduction. Two different producers. But of the young champagnes, I think 2008 Rødder Kristall that just has everything. Every single time I tasted it is a pure 100 points. It's just that's just a miraculously good champagne. But this is not going to be about that wine. This is going to be about 1929 Krug.
Just to set the premise or some framework here, could you define what's a great champagne?
Well, a great wine, it doesn't matter what it is. It just needs to have everything you're supposed to have and probably a bit more than that, actually. When you just have perfection, it's a really complex wine. There's nothing out of harmony anywhere in the wine, which is actually much rarer than you think. But also great aftertaste where the taste just lingers and lingers and lingers, sometimes for minutes after you swallow it. That's the hallmarks of any great wine, whatever it is. And both of these champagnes have that. I've had other champagnes which are absolutely stunning, but this 1929, I know that old wines are not for everyone. I'm at enough tastings, both professionally and privately, that you know that some people sometimes find the wine too old. They don't appreciate that sort of extreme evolution, which of course 1929 has. And fine, then you don't really need to store it that long. I'm a sucker for these old wines. I absolutely love almost every old wine that comes my way, as long as it's good and it's not a faulty bottle. And this 29 was just, again, served blind. From the first smell of it, quite dark color again, and just getting the smell with just hazelnuts, brioche, these mature, I'm not really familiar with the term in English, but when you have an apple tree in your garden and it's apples, in October, they're starting to sort of rot, that sort of very oxidized apple aroma. Of course, that's not the most perfect aroma for a lot of people, but I think if you have a bit of that, it can add quite a bit of complexity. And it was smoky notes, nuts, almonds, oxidative, of course, and that was just a nose, just this layers and layers of all of these sort of aromas, much more complex than almost any champagne I've ever smelled. And then you just had the palate, which was just incredible smoothness. Everything was just rounded off, acidity, and there was still some bubbles left, which was just super harmonious, not aggressive in any way, which some young champagnes can actually be. The bubbles are a bit on the aggressive side. And just this incredible smoothness, and aftertaste, it just went on forever. And unlike the Tsar champagne, this one I remembered that I gave it a full 100 points before I had any idea what it was. I guessed it was quite old. I think I guessed it was from the 40s or 50s. And I actually guessed it was Krug. So I was correct on the Krug part, but it was even older. So it was the 29, which, as far as I understood, is also a great vintage in Champagne, as it is in Bordeaux. And I had read about this wine before. Again, one of those wines which you read about and you think, that's never going to happen. And sometimes things that's never... I'm going to say that about quite a few of these old wines I've tried, because honestly, you don't really expect them to ever show up. And so that was the 29 Krug. It was absolutely fantastic.
In what kind of setting are you tasting those kinds of wines?
That was tasted by someone playing the Beethoven's Moonshine Sonata on a fantastic Steinway. That was the setting. So, yeah, that was just incredible. It was a wine tasting, but it was a different setup. It wasn't the usual everyone's round table. This was a different one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone expected a wine on that sort of level.
Mm.
But we had very nice wines, but it was talking, much more talking than in a normal tasting, and so just a very nice atmosphere amongst friends. Yeah.
Actually, I've also tasted the '08 Cristal. What was striking with that champagne to me was the acidity. I was just blown away. It was so insane, but still balanced because the body of the wine was there. The bubbles was just so fine and full-bodied and complex on the aromas.
One of the things which lacks in quite a few champagnes is exactly that. A lot of them have very nice acidity, and they're supposed to have very nice acidity. A lot of them have a lot of bubbles as well, which sort of they both point in one direction, which is freshness. But what a lot of them lacks, and that's one of the things which fascinates me with the '08 Cristal, is that it doesn't really feel. It always feels very bright, very almost like illuminated in a way, but it has a concentration which you don't really feel, but it's there, balancing all through the palate, which is incredible. And if you're ever lucky enough to taste Salon, which is one of the also top champagnes, it's super rare, and now the prices have gone crazy. But I used to drink Salon relatively regularly. Now it turns up once a year if I'm super lucky. But for me, Salon has always been that incredible lightness. That was one of the things I thought was super difficult when I started with wine, was to understand some of these wines which are not a powerhouse. There's something else. It's that finesse, how everything just sits perfectly together. And they can sometimes be easy to overlook, because sometimes you're like, oh, shouldn't it be more intense? Shouldn't it be? And actually that intensity is there, because you notice it if you drink powerful Rhone wine just after, and all of a sudden the aftertaste of the champagne comes and actually cleans out that heavy Syrah wine. Then you know that, oh, there's something going on in that champagne which is different from what you maybe noticed at first. And I think that's that sort of just incredible harmony in a wine is what differentiate the truly great ones from the really, really good ones, but definitely from the average. People think that champagne is always party and great times, but most of the champagnes out there are quite average, to be honest. So and they're made by the millions, so you can't make excellent wines in that sort of amount. But when they hit it, and of course there's more perfect and great champagnes than these two, but being able to taste that really mature old champagne and having that exact same just perfect harmony throughout the entire, I just remember how incredibly smooth it was. And that's difficult. Those wines are rare.
Fascinating.